From the bus drivers who navigate through morning traffic to the superintendents who facilitate a vision for our educational programs, our school functions as a unit. But who lies beyond the objectives of a daily lesson plan? Who are those who organize our curriculum, our pedagogical practices, our daily after-school activities, or even our high-spirited assemblies and afternoon lunches? What places did life take them? And through what roads did they travel till they adopted the position they are in today? In this web series, we will not only delve into the educational and employment background of our staff at Warren, but we will also recognize their contributions, discover their aspirations, and unravel their individuality. For all people deserve to have their story told. My name is Rebecca Benjamin, and this is What's Your Story? Today we're meeting with Mrs. Janczak. She is a math teacher and she's been working at the Ammon campus for 14 years. She currently teaches AP Statistics, Pre-Calculus, and Algebra 2 Trig. It's so wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Janczak. Thank you so much for being willing to be a part of this.
Thanks for having me.
So my first question for you regards your background. This could pertain to any sort of element or component of your life that you feel deserves recognition. It could also encompass your college major or any sort of major academic projects or parts of your life that you feel deserve to be told.
Okay, so I hope you have a little bit of time. When I was growing up, I always liked working with kids, and I found myself teaching Sunday school, babysitting, all the time. But when I got to high school, I really started to find that I enjoyed my math and science classes. So I thought, I'm gonna be a doctor. So I applied to one college when it was time, and I was lucky I got in. But I was accepted with a bio pre-med major at Loyola. Received a little bit of a scholarship, and that's where I was going to go. I was going to be a doctor. Well, about a week before college started, I freaked out a little bit. I started to worry that I wasn't going to be able to do it. It was going to be too much of a time commitment, and I said, no way, I'm not doing this. So I actually called the school, changed my major to elementary education because I've always enjoyed working with kids. And one of the reasons I was nervous about becoming a doctor is because I don't like needles and I pass out. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to be a doctor if I pass out from a needle. So I changed my major to elementary ed. So I started taking elementary ed courses for one semester at Loyola, and I had a professor who said, you know, you're acing this math class. Have you ever thought about teaching high school? And I was like, no, those kids are scary. How am I going to teach high school? And I think I was 18 or 19 at the time. And then she said, no, seriously, like your math skills are strong enough that maybe you should think about teaching high school. So around that time, I was in the city at Loyola. I wasn't comfortable living in the city. It was just very different for me. I grew up going to a parochial school, so I was with the same 17 students from preschool through 8th grade.
Wow.
Freaked out and thought, you know, this is too much. So I decided to transfer to ISU. I wanted a little bit more of like the typical college experience with the big football team and everything. And with my switch to ISU, I changed my major to math education, and I moved out of the city. And I enjoyed my education classes. I was having a good time. I worked a lot in college, so I didn't really participate in any extracurricular type things. But I enjoyed my classes. I actually had one class that I didn't do so well in. It was a math class. The professor started that year saying, this is my last year of college. I'm not teaching anymore after this. I'm retiring. And by the way, most people fail my class. So I was like, oh great, this will be fun. So I got a D, and I wanted to improve my GPA. So I took the class over again. In the meantime, that extended my schooling for an extra year because there was another class that was only offered in the spring that I needed, and student teaching was only in the spring. So I was on the 6-year college plan. And because I had a little bit of extra time, I picked up a Spanish major. Spanish was something that I enjoyed when I was in high school, and I actually doubled up classes in college to get the minor. So in my 6 years, I left with a math education major and a Spanish minor. So I started applying for math jobs, and when I graduated college, it was a time where like everybody was applying for teacher jobs, but there weren't enough of them. So I didn't actually get a full-time offer out of college, but Mr. Parrott from the Allman campus called and said, "We'd like you to be a substitute in our school. What do you think about that?" I thought, okay, it's a job, I'm going to do it. So my first semester at Warren, I was a daily substitute, came every day, subbed in all sorts of different classes, so I got to know teachers all around the building, and started to find different areas that I enjoyed. Like I really enjoyed working with special ed students. I enjoyed working in the Spanish classrooms because I kind of understood what they were doing. I made friends with teachers all over the building. And then lucky for me, a math teacher was pregnant, had her baby, and went on maternity leave for the entire spring semester. So I was her for the spring semester. And then after that, 2 more math teachers were pregnant and had babies for consecutive semesters. So my first 2 years here were actually subbing. But in that time, I taught all different math classes. So I had low-level classes, I had honors, or not honors, I had high-level classes, and then I was able to kind of prove that I was a decent teacher here, and so when there was an opening, I was interviewed and I got the job. So really, I kind of had to work my way in, wow. But it worked out to benefit me. So when I was a younger teacher here, I decided I'm gonna get a master's degree, and we had to wait 2 years before I could get a master's degree. So I focused on being a teacher for those first 2 years. Went for a curriculum and instruction master's, which is basically learning how to learn about students better, how to put yourself in their shoes, how to develop a curriculum that's effective. And then I took a year off and decided, well, maybe I want another master's. So I went back for another one. And that one, at the end, I was certified to be like a dean or a principal, a school administrator, if I wanted to be. So within 5 years, I had 2 master's degrees, which I was like, okay, this is kind of crazy. Well, when I got my master's, that was the same year I got married. So I actually missed the setup for my wedding because I was at grad school. I married Mr. Janczak, who's a math teacher at Eau Plaine. And that's kind of a weird story because we went to college together, didn't know each other, but we found out that his dad and my dad worked together a long time ago, and my mom, his uncle was my mom's boss. So it's like all of these weird connections.
That's awesome. And
we both got jobs here, we graduated together. And actually, we're one of 3 couples from our graduating class from ISU. And most of us are math teachers. So 5 of the 6 people are math teachers and 1 is a science teacher. So we're here, we got married, I have 2 kids. I've kind of worked around the building in different spots with different people, a lot of people that I know just from subbing. It's been a bit of a challenge. Sometimes I wonder, do I really want to do this every day? Other times I've had different like leadership experiences, both within my department and then kind of not school-wide. How would you say it? I was a PLT leader for a while and the assistant lead teacher in my department. So I wasn't a boss with my coworkers, but I kind of coordinated a lot of things within our department. And then once I started having kids, that was just too much. So I've cut back a little bit. Now I just teach.
That's great. So one thing, one of the classes that you teach is AP Statistics. I'm also in your AP Statistics class, and there's only one AP Statistics class in the entire school. So could you talk more about your involvement with AP Statistics? How were you able to get involved in it, and how do you feel about the class as a whole?
So when I was first starting out, after I was the maternity leave sub, I got hired full-time. There was a teacher who taught AP Stats. She was the only teacher in the school's history. The course started in 1997 or 1998. She started it, developed it on her own. She was the only one that taught it. We were getting to the point where she was going to retire. And so our lead teacher said, does anybody want to teach this course? And I was like, job security, I'll teach it. And then I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. But the first couple of years were kind of hard because I had to try to remember the class myself. And I was kind of self-taught. I developed everything on my own. And now it's actually something that I love. It's probably my favorite class to teach, so it's kind of sad that I only have one of them. But I see statistics now as something that's very valuable. It's something that's around each of us every day. And
Definitely.
in my opinion, the most valuable math class. But
Yes, yeah, I agree.
but I've also tried to reach out a little bit to other sources. Dr. Purdy Sabetti is a renowned genetic biologist. She has her own lab at Harvard, and I had a class one year that followed her on Twitter. And so I reached out to her, I emailed her and said, hey, my class loves you. Is there any way you could send him an email message? And she actually responded and said, why don't we video chat? She said, I love being able to work with high schoolers and inspire them and help them to see, you know, what life is really like, so let's video chat. And we've done that for 2 years now, or 3 years. And don't tell anybody, we're gonna do it again. We'll talk to her in the spring, yeah. She talks in AP Statistics.
That's awesome.
And she talks about not only statistics, but about how as an immigrant and a female, she's had to work her way up in her field to get respect, but also about the challenges just with genetics and getting respect in the world and not just her field. So it's something that, like, with different issues that I've had in leadership as a female and hearing from her as well, I've become more passionate about representing females or representing people who maybe don't have a voice that can be heard. So I'm actually kind of like open to different opportunities now where maybe that's something that I venture into in addition to teaching. How can I use my experiences to help build other people up who maybe don't have a voice?
So for my last question, it's more regarding your personal philosophies. So what personal philosophies do you hold true to yourself, and how exactly are you able to convey those to your students?
So one of the reasons I was interested in participating in this project is because everybody has a story. And through my experiences, I've realized that I had a pretty comfortable childhood growing up, and I had access to resources that I needed to be successful. But I found that not everybody has that. So I think when I first started teaching, my philosophy was always directly related to my field. Like, how do I get everybody to learn math? And it was math, math, math. And then with my different experiences through my career and then outside of school as well, I've seen, I've traveled around the world, and I've seen how different people view Americans, but then also how different people have different beliefs and things that they value. Like, there are some cultures that primarily it's relationships first and academics or career second. And that's something that I was like, wow, we're always raised to think what's so important in our lives, and it's our jobs. And really, like, there's so much more out there. Within different, like, tutoring experiences or teaching experiences here, I've run into people from all different backgrounds. And so now my philosophy is more of a, who is this person as a whole? And how do we help them achieve what they need to do to be successful, rather than how are they going to ace my class? Because really, not everybody's going to do well in math. And that's okay. I tell my students, I don't care if you don't like this class, let's just get you through it, because there are going to be things in life that you don't exactly like, but you have to learn how to grow and get through those experiences to achieve good success, right? I have students who have terrible home lives. They go home, they don't know if they're going to have a meal or not that night. I have students who have lost family members, sorry. But I feel like sometimes if I can be the positive light in their day that they have, then it makes it all worth it to be here. So, sorry, but I have so many students who are so memorable to me because they've, like, experienced the worst at a very young age, and yet they can sit there and focus on their academics and do well. And really the end of the day, like, that's what's important. How do you experience different things in your life and move through them and become a better person? And so I think that's more my philosophy now. How can I help you become the best you and get through so that you can move on and become a better person and achieve what you want?
Well, I would just like to say thank you so much for being a part of this. I think the fact that you are just so touched by the lives of your students, that displays how important they are to you. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's beautiful, and I definitely think that that's an inspiration for everyone to learn that, you know, just in general, your job is not just a job to you. Mm-hmm. It's your life. It makes up who you are. And so thank you so much for being a part of this. This is truly what #What'sYourStory is all about.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for listening.
No